Namaskar, Sat Sri Akal, and a very good morning to all the guests of the Nobel Prize Series India 2019. On behalf of Nobel Media, the Government of Punjab, the Department of Biotechnology, and all our partners, I welcome the moderators of the first session of the day in a dialogue with teachers. It is now my honor to invite Secretary of the Department of Biotechnology, Dr. Renu Sarup, and also please be joined by all the guests that we have today. Kindly join us on the stage. The moderators of the first session today are again requested to join for a dialogue with teachers. Thank you. Department of Biotechnology, Dr. Renu Sarup, to be please present on the stage to deliver the opening remarks to the Teachers Summit. Thank you.
Teachers Summit and Dialogue, I think, is a wonderful start. There can be no foundation building unless there is a deep engagement with the teachers and their understanding of the importance of this subject so that they can then take it to the students. We look forward to these 2 days of interaction, one at Nabi here and tomorrow at the Punjab Agriculture University in Ludhiana. The rich experience that the laureates bring with them, I'm confident that the teachers from the universities, from the colleges, and the students who join us later today would greatly benefit from this wonderful event. I urge you all to take maximum benefit from this wonderful interaction. We have the best of teachers, we have the best of your role models, we have the best of the inspiration that they would be able to provide to you. We hope this would be an excellent learning which can then, through these teachers who become like training the trainers, take this message across the country. We hope this would have a multiplier effect and the motivation that you receive from here actually gets translated into action as you work with your students, and we hope this would be a wonderful beginning to a very, very exciting journey of the students looking at the interesting aspects of the whole learning and education and becoming the future leaders for our tomorrow. I would like to wish you all good luck, and we will keep interacting as we move on in this whole dialogue series for 2 days. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for setting up the context of such an inspiring session ahead. It is now a great pleasure to invite Laura Swetchman, CEO of Nobel Media, to share her insights with all of us today.
Dear Nobel Laureates, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear teachers. Welcome to this Teachers Summit, which is part of Nobel Prize Series India 2019. It's an honor to share this auditorium and the coming sessions with a group of teachers. There are many professions we can choose to pursue in our lives. Many of them, we don't really know what they are about, but everyone knows what a teacher is. For many of us, a teacher is not only a profession. A teacher is somebody who has expanded our world, helped us connect the dots, made us think new questions to ask. A teacher is someone who saw our potential, made us flourish. Let me share wise words by 2 Nobel laureates to illustrate my point. Paul Nurse, Nobel laureate in physiology or medicine from 2001, said, "I enjoyed my time at primary school because my teachers made the world seem such an interesting place and encouraged my innate curiosity." Maybrit Moser, Nobel laureate in physiology and medicine from 2014, whom we will meet later on today, said, "I was not always the best student with the highest grades, but my teachers saw something in me and tried to encourage me." These are just 2 of many Nobel laureates. These are just 2 of many Nobel laureates who have spoken about at least one teacher that has influenced them and meant much to them. But teachers also can discourage us, so you all have a big responsibility. The exhibition we will inaugurate today it's actually the world premiere, is for you and for your students. Take the opportunity to see it during the coming weeks, to discuss with your students and to learn together. This Nobel Prize series is brought to you by the Nobel Prize Museum and Nobel Media. Together, it is our aim to inspire people to seek knowledge, ask questions, and contribute to improving the world. Well, to make the world a better place, teaching and learning are crucial. Learning and education are key for developing stable democracies, human well-being, and sustainable societies. Before I conclude, and on behalf of Nobel Media and the Nobel Prize Museum, I would like to thank Minister Harsh Vardhan and the Department of Biotechnology, and especially Dr. Renu Swarup for your great support. Minister Manpreet Singh Badal and the state of Punjab for hosting us here. Nabi and Mr. Sharma for providing us these facilities. Our Nobel International partners, 3M, ABB, Ericsson, Scania, and Volvo Cars, and the Meta Family Foundation for your friendship and partnership. The Embassy of Sweden in India for our collaboration, and not least, all my dear colleagues for making all this possible and for being so professional. Finally, thank you all of you for attending. Please enjoy the day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing the vision of the Nobel Prize series with us. We welcome you now to this exciting dialogue and kindly invite Annika here, those SFARC Vice President, to please come forward. Thank you. Let's welcome with a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, our distinguished guests, Nobel laureates, teachers, friends. I'm Annika.
I'm Lotta.
And we are here to welcome you to this Nobel Prize Teacher Summit. So, Lotta and I, we are both teachers, just like you, the most important profession in the world, we think. And we run the educational programs for the Nobel Prize. And today, we have brought two Nobel laureates to meet you, the teachers, to inspire you and to empower you in your very important work.
We have Serge Haroche from France He was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics for groundbreaking discoveries in quantum physics. Kailash Satyarthi from India received the Nobel Peace Prize. Yes. Received the Nobel Peace Prize for his tireless work for children's rights. The purpose of this meeting here today is to learn more from these Nobel laureates and to discuss important topics like teaching and learning. We will also tell you how you can use the Nobel Prize educational resources today.
So, I've been a teacher working in schools for over 25 years. I was a teacher and a principal. So Lotta and I, we both know from experience the daily life of a teacher. But I think no matter what you work with, we should all join forces to enlighten the big importance of teachers, the hard work that you do. So the Nobel Prize shows that great ideas and hard work really can change the world, but it won't be done without you, the teachers.
So now we would like to guide you very shortly through what the Nobel Prize is all about. So the Nobel Prize in 5 categories have been awarded for over 100 years. More than 900 laureates have received this prize and over 70 organizations. And they come from many, many countries. And it all started with a man named Alfred Nobel. So Alfred Nobel, he lived during the 19th century. He was born in Stockholm, but he lived in many different places all over the world. St. Petersburg, Hamburg, Paris, and San Remo in Italy. He spoke several languages, and as a young man dreamt of becoming an author. Instead, his father Emmanuel encouraged him and all his other brothers to become engineers. Alfred Nobel became a successful chemist, inventor, and businessman. So Alfred Nobel started experimenting with a liquid explosive nitroglycerin, and that led to the invention of dynamite, an explosive much safer to handle than nitroglycerin alone. And Alfred Nobel continued to develop explosives, as well as other ideas and inventions, such as artificial silk, and actually the first aluminium boat in the world. He was very careful with his patent applications and started many companies and factories for dynamite production. His best-known invention, the dynamite, made him one of the wealthiest persons in Europe. Alfred Nobel was known for his inventions, but he is also criticized. Dynamite was not only used for mining and for construction of railroads, tunnels, and canals. It was also used in warfare. So, at the age of 62, Alfred Nobel wrote his will. You have the first part of it here. One year, on December 10th, 1890, he died of a stroke. And in this will, he wrote that a large part of his estate was to be placed in a fund. The yearly interest on that fund would pay for a prize, giving to those who during the preceding year have conferred the greatest benefit to humankind. According to the will, the prize would go to the worthiest candidates, whether they were Scandinavian or not. According to the will of Alfred Nobel, The prize would be divided in 5 different categories. You see them here: physics, chemistry, physiology or medicine, literature, and peace. He also specified who should select the Nobel Prize laureates. The physics and the chemistry prizes, they would be awarded by the Royal Academy of Sciences in Stockholm. The prize in physiology or medicine should be awarded by the Karolinska Institute, also in Stockholm. The prize in literature by the Swedish Academy, and the Peace Prize by a committee consisting of 5 persons elected by the Norwegian Parliament. The first Nobel Prize was awarded in 1901. In the late 1960s, the Swedish Central Bank, they established a prize in economic sciences in memory of Alfred Nobel. And that prize is awarded at the same time as the Nobel Prize during the same ceremony.
So, the fantastic thing about the Nobel Prize, it shows that individuals really can make a change. So whether it is about helping people in need, exploring our universe, or making discoveries that lead to vaccines or new life-saving medicines. But who gets to pick who becomes a Nobel laureate? We are actually going to meet one of the few. She is a very successful scientist herself, and she's a member of the Nobel Committee for Medicine. So give a warm hand to Professor Julien Sirat.
Well, let me first start by saying it's a real honor for me to be here today. And in just a few weeks, we will be announcing the 2019 Nobel Prizes. So the first week of October is a really big week, and you'll get to hear some history-breaking news. But today, what I will do is tell you a little bit about awarding the Nobel Prize. So as you heard earlier, Alfred Nobel left very clear instructions in his will. And he was very clear in that he said the whole remaining estate should be dealt with in the following ways. The capital should be invested, and it should constitute a fund which should be distributed annually in the form of prizes in specific areas that he defined in his will. And it should be awarded to individuals whose work has conferred the greatest benefit for humankind. So initially, Alfred Nobel was very careful about defining 5 areas that he wanted to recognize. And they were physics, and this is awarded for a discovery or an invention, chemistry, the chemistry prize is awarded for a discovery or an improvement. Physiology is awarded for a discovery. Literature is awarded for the most important work in the idealistic style. And peace is awarded for efforts in peace, including conferences and disarmaments. Now, you also heard that some years later, the Swedish Riksbank Prize in Economic Sciences was added to the list of awards. And this is a prize that is awarded in honor or in memory of Alfred Nobel, and it's based on a donation from the Swedish National Bank, the Federal Reserve. So Alfred Nobel was also very clear about who should be deciding on the laureates in these 5 areas. For example, physics and chemistry, and now economics, are awarded through the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences. And he was very clear that the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine should be awarded from professors at the Karolinska Institutet, literature to be awarded by members of the Swedish Academy, and peace to be awarded by a committee that was elected by the Norwegian Parliament. And what I can talk to you about is my experiences in awarding the prize in physiology or medicine. So I have been a member of the Nobel Assembly since 2006, and much of what we do is very secretive, but I can share a few reflections with you from behind the closed doors. So we are meeting every year in this building. It's the Nobel Forum, and this is where we deal with the nominations. So who does what? So the decision for the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine is taken by the Nobel Assembly, and we're meeting 5 times a year to discuss the different candidates that are nominated. The Assembly also selects the Nobel Committee, and this is the executive committee or the working group. This is a group of individuals who are dealing with every nomination and providing a list of recommendations for the Assembly on different candidates that should be considered for the prize in physiology or medicine. And this committee meets 9 times a year, so it's a very engaged committee. So how does our year look? So we start every year with a clean slate, and we start in January with our nominations. And we are getting nominations of about several hundred each year. The nominations are coming in from individuals around the whole globe. People are asked to nominate up to 3 individuals for a distinct discovery in the area of physiology or medicine. Nominations can come from previous Nobel laureates, members of the different academies and committees, faculty around the world. So it's a very large catchment, and we get probably 400 or 500 nominations each year, and about 25% of the nominations are newly nominated candidates. 75% are individuals who've been nominated previously. And you have to be nominated in the year to be considered for the prize. So at the end of January, we start evaluating these hundreds of candidates that have been nominated. And we're writing reports and asking others around the world to comment on the different nominations. So once the prize is awarded, and for physiology or medicine, it's the first Monday in October, we have to communicate that to the world. And many of you are educators and teachers, so I want to share with you some of the ways in which we communicate the award. So one way we communicate the prize is through press releases, and this is the 2013 Nobel Prize, and we put together a package of information so that we can explain sometimes these very complicated discoveries so that individuals can really get a grasp on the work that they did. We also write a very detailed scientific report called our background information on each of the different prizes awarded. And this is the prize for 2014. And I think that we'll hear Mybrit Moser, one of the recipients, later on in today. But this is a very technical background that is of interest and gives you some of the reasoning for the discoveries. And then the last way we communicate the prize is in the form of a poster. And this is an example of the poster from the 2015 Nobel Prize. And these posters are wonderful teaching tools that you can use in the classroom to explain to your students the fascinating work that these laureates have done in the journey to their discovery. So I'll leave you with this last bit of information. If you would like more knowledge about the different Nobel Prizes in all the different categories, not only physiology or medicine, turn to the nobelprize.org website, and you can easily access the press releases, the scientific background, and poster information about many of the prizes going back 100 years from this site. And with that, I'll leave you with sort of the last kernel. Nobel Prizes can come from anywhere in the world, and perhaps amongst you, there may be a future Nobel laureate. So thank you for your attention.
And yeah, it's working. So now you know a little more about the Nobel Prize, how it was founded, and who picks out the Nobel Laureates. So now I want to ask you, are you ready to meet your first Nobel Laureate? Yes? Okay. So our first Nobel Laureate to meet you is Professor Serge Haroche. He was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics 2012, and his main research activities has been in quantum optics and quantum information service. So it's a great honor to welcome up on stage Serge Haroche. Welcome. Welcome, Mr. Haroche. Okay, the stage is yours.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me? It's a great pleasure for me to be here today, and I would like to share with you my reflections about how we can try to get the best possible science education for young children. Okay, let me have the first slide. First of all, I would like to tell you that I am not a specialist in the science of education. I am not a pedagogue, and I have never taught myself to young children. But I know I have many friends who are doing that, and I would like to tell you a little bit some ideas about that. The first asset we have when we want to teach science to young children is that they are very curious. From a very early age on, they are interested in the world around them, and this curiosity is of course shared with scientists. Science, basic science, is all about curiosity. The second point I would like to stress is that children love to be told stories. They like fairy tale stories, they like adventure stories, and it's very easy to show to them that science is an adventure, and there are wonderful stories about science which can be told and which can push students, push young children into science. What we have to do is to make them observe natural phenomena and perform simple measurements, and in this way it is easy to trigger their curiosity and to open their mind and to open their mind to the value of science. What are the values that science is carrying? And it is very interesting to accompany all this information with stories about great scientists, to tell them how science is built up through trials and errors. One of my friends, a former Nobel Prize winner in 1992, Georges Charpak, had started 25 years ago a foundation in which he tried to get young scientists into science, and this foundation was called in France La main à la pâte, and the translation may be hands-on. He wanted children to be able to put their hands on specific experiments, to do the experiments themselves. Children perform simple observation in physics, in chemistry, or in biology, and the level of teaching depends, of course, on the age of the students. Many topics can be chosen. For instance, last year, one of the topics was everything you have to learn about climate change. So it involves knowledge, some knowledge in physics, what is the greenhouse effect about, some knowledge in chemistry, you have to understand why some molecules are absorbing infrared and others not. And it has to do also with meteorology, climate studies. Another example is the study of the size of the Earth. You start by history to tell them that the Greek philosophers and Greek scientists have known that the Earth was around more than 2,000 years ago, and try to explain to them how the size of the Earth was measured for the first time, and even do experiments about that by measuring, for instance, the length of the shadow of different altitudes in France and compare their and evaluation of the size of the Earth. So you see, you try to get the students interested by specific and very precise experiments or measurements. Of course, the teachers must feel comfortable with these approaches, and they must know much more than the students themselves. So the training of students is also very important. The prerequisite for all this, of course, is that the students must be fluent in reading and in calculation, in making simple operations. This is obvious, but it is not that obvious after all. And in many countries in the world, of young students are not fluent in reading, fluent in operation, even at the end of elementary school. So the first thing we have to do, of course, before we start to teach science, is to make sure that the students are fluent in these very important areas. Of course, the teachers also must be trained to these methods. They must have the pedagogical skills to guide the students through the scientific procedure, to show to the students how from mere observations you can get into models. You can build models from observation, use these models to create new effects. Science is a permanent go back and forth between observation models, and so on. For this kind of program to be successful, of course, the teachers must have a free mind. They must be considered by society as very important people because they have in charge the minds of the next generation, which will be essential to manage the country and to manage the society in the future. So it's very important for all this to be successful that the teachers get a good salary and they have a good ways of life for themselves so that they can spend all their energy and all their mind to the task which we are discussing today. In the hands-on project that I was mentioning before, there is also a very strong collaboration between teachers in elementary, middle school, and high school on the one hand, and university people, PhD students, postdocs, professors, interact with the teachers. We give them advice about the topics to be taught. We give instruction also to build very simple experimental kits that the teachers can use to make demonstration and to help students, children work with them. So this is also very important. Teachers must be trained for that, and they also must get some elements of computer science which has to be mastered by them because they have to convey these computer skills to the students. This program is also accompanied by visits to research laboratories, to science museums, to planetariums, to field trips, to zoos, aquariums, and this is also very important. The history of great discoveries could also be presented in simple terms as illustration to excite the imagination of the students. Of course, I don't have to insist very much about the importance of all this for society. The children of today will be responsible for managing the world of tomorrow, and we know that there is a lot of issues, a lot of challenges that mankind has to meet in the future, having to do with global climate change, with the need for renewable energy sources, and for that we need a lot of science and a lot of research. So we need to get bright minds into science. But even more importantly, I think that even the citizens who are not to become scientists need to have an education in science. And that the general population knows what are the values of science, how science works, so that they will be able to resist against all the fake news, the alternative truths, and all these conspiracy theories which are going around today and which are a big threat for science. And so I hope that if we improve the general education of children, in the next generation there will be less possibilities for this fake news and conspiracy theory to prosper. So this is general ideas, but I would like now to give you an example of the way mathematics can be taught to children. Mathematics is very important because it is the mother of all sciences. You need math if you want to do physics, you need physics if you want to do chemistry, and you need chemistry if you want to go into biology and the science of life. So everything has to start with mathematics. And the problem is that very often maths are considered to be threatening, difficult, and a lot of people in modern society are shying away from mathematics, saying, oh, math is not for me, I don't understand anything in math. And this is a big problem, and I think the problem can be solved because math can be fun if you expose math in the right way. And you can tell stories about that, and I would like to tell you the story of Carl Friedrich Gauss, who was a great mathematician who was born at the end of the 18th century and who worked throughout the 19th century, giving very important contributions to mathematics and math which has been useful for physics afterwards. And the story says that when Gauss was a young child, back in the 1780s, he was in a classroom with his friends, and the class was not very quiet, making a lot of noise, and the teacher punished the class, gave a collective punishment, and he asked all the pupils to add all the number from 1 to 100. And he hoped he would have some rest, and because it would take a lot of time for the student to achieve this. And he was very much surprised when the young Gauss just took his chalkboard, and in 1 second he wrote the result. And the question is, how did Gauss succeed in doing this operation very quickly? And I just show it on this slide. Gauss did something very easy. He added the first one and the last one, 100, and the result is 101. Then he takes the second one, 2, and the second from last, 99, and the result was again 101, and so on. And so Gauss immediately realized that what he had to do is to add 50 times 101, going from the first line to the last one, and he got immediately a result 5050. So this is a very striking example of what you can do if you think a little bit. You don't have to do all the operations. And this is an illustration also of very important properties of mathematics. The fact that an addition is commutative, you can change the order of terms, and associative, you can group the terms by 2. And once you have made this kind of exercise, you can ask the students if they have understood well to add also number from 1 to 1,000. And again, the result is very simple. If they have understood, they will find immediately that it's 500,500. This is one example of what you can do with mathematics. And on the next slide, I will give you another one to solve the same problem. And this is a trick which I learned from Manjul Bhargava, who is an Indian field medalist in mathematics. And I saw him explaining this trick to young Indian children who opened big eyes looking at him. They were amazed by his lecture. You see how Bhargava did the trick? If you want to add the numbers, you can use squares, and you can build a staircase. You have a staircase which has one square, then 2 squares, 3 squares, 4 squares. You build the staircase, and the sum is, of course, the number of squares you have in the staircase. And if you don't want to compute it, what you can do is to take the same staircase. The first staircase is in red. You take the second staircase in blue, you turn it over, and you complete a rectangle. And now you have a rectangle whose one size is the number that you want to add to. The second size is n plus 1. The area of the staircase is n times n plus 1. And this is twice the sum that you want to compute. So just by this small trick, which mixes arithmetics and geometry, Manjul showed to the students the same result as Gauss did before. If you use this for 100, you find n 100, n plus 1, 101. You multiply and divide by 2, and you find the result. In the same lecture, Manjul used another trick, which is to learn to students what squares are about. On the first line, you see that you can build squares of size 1, 2, and 3, and the area of the squares is, of course, 1, 4, 9, and so on. So in this way, you learn that the notion of square is a notion of arithmetics. You multiply a number by itself, and it's also a concept in geometry. It measures the area of a square. And then Manjul proceeded on the second line to show how you get from one square to the next. You start with 1, and if you want to build the other one, just have to put on the border the blue squares that I have shown. And you see that to go from the one to the first to the second one, you have to add 3 squares on the border, 1 on top, 1 on the side, and 1 in the corner. So 1 plus 3 is equal to 4. If you want to go to the third square, you do the same. You add the blue border, 2 on the side, 2 on the top, and 1 in the corner, that's 5. And what this shows is that if you add odd numbers, the sum of odd numbers gives all the squares. And this is also a very simple mathematical properties. And this has a very deep connection with physics, because you see the progression, 1, 3, 5, 7, it's an acceleration. The more you go, the bigger the number of steps that you are making. And if you have such an accelerated motion, what you see is that the accumulated distance goes as a square of the number of steps. This is what you learn when you learn the law of the fall of bodies in the gravitational field. The velocity increases by constant steps, and the time it takes to fall for a given distance increases as a square of the time. The distance increases as a square of the time. So you see, you can connect in this way geometry, arithmetics, and physics. And this is a kind of techniques which can be used to teach students the unity and the beauty of science. So I think I have used up all my time, and I will stop at this point. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, you can hear me now. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Prof. It's okay. I think I used this one instead. It's safer. So, what a wonderful thing to have a lesson from you, a Nobel laureate. Thank you so much for your inspiring words. Now, actually, you, the teachers, are going to ask him some questions. And it will be a very short question, not a statement, not a lecture, only a very short question. And you know, I'm also a teacher, so who wants to ask a question? We have some people with microphones. Raise up your hand. Someone? Are you too shy? Do we have somebody? So, the persons with a microphone, pick one. So tell me your name.
My name is Surinder Singh.
And your question.
Question is the word in third slide, Erythrostine. I wasn't able to understand the meaning of Erythrostine.
Sorry, I need you to repeat the question because I couldn't hear you. Speak louder and slower, please.
There was a word in third slide that is Erythrostine, I think. Measuring the size of Earth on the step of Erythrostine.
It is really hard to hear what you said.
Erythrostine, E-R-Y-T-H-O-S-T-E-N-E-S.
Sorry. Well, I think this it's not possible to hear the questions from the stage. So I think I will ask you a question, Professor Harosh. So what was your best teacher like?
I think my best teacher was a math teacher. When I was at the end of high school, I had a very good math teacher
who was connecting all the fields that I was discussing, this calculus, arithmetics, and geometry. And he was very inspiring. And he allowed me at this time, for instance, to compute the velocity of rockets to escape from the Earth's gravitational field. It was a time when the first rockets were sent to the moon, and it was very exciting to understand that with the simple math that I was learning in school, I was able to compute these very important parameters.
Okay, so that was an important teacher that meant something to you. So I would like to thank you for sharing this inspiration to our teachers on stage.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, Professor Harosh.
So very good morning to you all.
Okay.
Honorable Nobel Laureates. May I ask the question?
Is this microphone working? No.
Okay, I'll stick to this one. So I'm sorry we couldn't hear your questions, but now we are about to tell you a little bit about the resources that we have made for schools. Lotta.
Well, first of all, in just 3 weeks, all the Nobel Prizes of 2019 will be announced. And that is like a real high point of the year for all of us who love science, literature, and peace. So every day of the week, starting on October 7th, a new Nobel Prize is going to be announced. You see the dates here. And because we want to support you teachers, who want to teach about these prizes, we have created free online material for you, and they're called the Nobel Prize Lessons.
So this is our website, and we have a large team working on this lesson material. We don't know who will get the Nobel Prize this year. So in the announcement week, every day a new Nobel Prize is announced. And when I was a teacher, I was teaching literature, and I, of course, wanted to do a lesson about the literature prize the next day. So I was waiting eagerly, and, well, not so well-prepared lesson, so that's why we want to help you. So we publish this lesson within 24 hours after every prize announcement. It's for free. It's a teacher guide. You can skip to the next. It's a teacher guide. It's online. It's a slideshow. It's the teacher's manuscript. And it's also some assignments for your students. And if you don't have the equipment that is required to show videos and all sorts of things, then you can just use the material as an inspiration for you and create your own lesson with it. And if you want to start already now, when you go back to your classrooms tomorrow, you can just pick the lesson about Alfred Nobel and the Nobel Prize. It's parts of the things that we already told you here today, and it's there for free online. And you can also do a theme lesson about, for example, Martin Luther King, and you can do a lesson about women, the Nobel Prize awarded women who really changed science. So it's a good role model for your kids.
So soon, you will visit the world premiere of this new exhibition, the Nobel Prize exhibition for the greatest benefit to humankind. And we have educated the guides in this exhibition for your school groups. So please don't miss to come with your students and visit this exhibition here. The exhibition is built around 4 themes that stress the importance for the world to take action for a sustainable future. And the themes are feeding humanity, saving lives, protecting the planet, and connecting the world. And these themes are also linked to different Nobel Prizes, different achievements that have helped to take those steps towards a better future. So when we talk about these themes with students back at the Nobel Prize Museum in Stockholm, we usually use different signatures that the students will make. And here is one of them. This is one assignment inspired by the Nobel laureate, the Nobel Peace Laureate, Malala Yousafzai. In 2013, she addressed the UN Assembly, and she addressed them about the importance of education for every child in the world. So inspired by her speech to the UN, we let the students think about what they would say in a similar situation. We let them imagine that they are like Malala Yousafzai addressing the UN about a very important thing. What would they say? And what global challenge would they put in the spotlight? What needs to be done in the world? So this is something we use, and this is something we will launch in a new Nobel Prize lesson about these themes. And then you can do this task as well with your students when we have launched this Nobel Prize lesson now very soon.
So, as you have heard, the Nobel Prize is all about making the world a better place by science, literature, and peace work that make people come together. But in many countries around the world, science and facts are being questioned. Human rights and democracy are at risk, and we, the teachers, we have a huge responsibility for the future. Many Nobel laureates say that curiosity, creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, and constantly learning throughout your life, that's really important if you want to be successful in any way. And we think that the most important thing is that you make every child feel its own importance for the future. But how do we keep up the fight for every child's right to education? We need both knowledge and compassion. And one person who fought so much for children's rights for decades, he has freed, together with his organization, over 80,000 children from child labor. It's a great honor. I'm so happy that you are here. Give a warm hand to Nobel Peace Laureate Kailash Satyarthi.
That's better. Thank you so much. Thank you. What a miracle. When we entered here, there were hardly 20, 30 or 50 people. And when I turned around, I saw the hall is overpacked. Thank you for coming. Thanks to the Nobel Committee, Government of Punjab, Government of India, and this institute in particular. Let me begin with a story. We have heard and learned and got inspired a lot about the Nobel Prizes. One day, a journalist was driving in countryside, and he noticed that there was a man standing in an open field under the hot sun. Of course, a journalist, he was curious, stopped, went close to this guy, and asked him, "Sir, what are you doing here?" He said, "Don't waste my time, don't disturb me. I am busy with very important work." He waited for another 10 minutes. And then he asked again, "Sir, what are you doing here? Can you tell now?" He said, "I am waiting for a Nobel Prize." So this man was looking like a farmer or agriculture worker and standing alone, no laboratory, no books, nothing. So surprisingly he asked again, "Are you waiting for a Nobel Prize?" He said, "Yes, sir. I read in my childhood that those who are outstanding in their field, they become the Nobel Laureates. And look at me, I am outstanding in my field," he says. But that does not apply to my friend Serge, who is having his birthday today. Unfortunately, he left. Otherwise, we could have said, "Janamdin Mubarak ho ji." Wo chale gaye. But anyway, we can still say happy birthday to our Nobel laureate who just delivered his talk. I know that there is a large number of students, scholars, teachers, academicians, government officers, and so on. Though I have studied engineering, I taught electrical engineering 2 years. But today I'm not talking about science and technology and engineering. I'm talking about something which you need not to borrow from anyone. That is already inside you. I'm talking about compassion. We have made huge progress in the field of science and technology and economics, politics, and every sphere of life. But we also live in a world where we see a lot of hatred, lot of disconnect, a lot of violence, multi-dimensional and acute poverty, illiteracy, whatnot. I'm not a priest, so don't expect me to listen something which is preaching. I wanted to start with my first intervention against child slavery or human slavery, and that began from Punjab. In 1981, after giving up my career as engineer, I started a magazine to sensitize and educate the people about the issue of most deprived children and women. One day, a desperate father knocked my door. He ran all the way from Sirhind. You know, Sirhind is not very far from here in Punjab. He came with one expectation that I am going to write his story. His 15-year-old daughter, who was born and grew up in slavery at a brick kiln, was about to be sold to a brothel. When father learned about it, he jumped into a brick-loaded truck in the middle of the night without knowing where the truck was going to, and he reached Chandigarh. And from here, he met someone who was the subscriber of my magazine and suggested this guy to go and meet Kailash Satyarthi in Delhi. So when I was listening to this guy, his name was Wasal Khan, I realized that if this 15-year-old Sabo, his daughter was my daughter, or was my sister, what would I do? I'm not simply going to wait, first write and then wait that any government authority will act on it. I said to Vasal that don't worry. I'm not going to write anymore. I am to go with you. I'm going to rescue your daughter. So I collected some friends and some logistics and reached here in Chandigarh first and then traveled to Sirhind, in the outskirts of Sirhind. Vasal was warning me that these people are very dangerous people, they can kill you and me. But I said, if this is your daughter, I can feel that this is my daughter too. So we reached there. We were beaten up. We were thrown. Wasal Khan was caught. The truck driver whom we hired has left the place out of fear. So we had to walk miles to get another vehicle on the road. Barefooted, torn clothes. I had to come back empty hands, but not empty heart. Because I always believed that whenever a problem is born, whatever difficult problem is, it is born with its solution inside its own womb. No problem is born without solution. It is up to us that how we look at the problem. We complicate it or we look at with an eye of a problem solver. Solution is there. So I went back to Delhi. I spoke to some of my friends and then we approached the court under habeas corpus petition. There is a legal provision of old British regime. And court has taken note of it. Within few days, that was on 22nd of March, 1981, the court has freed not only Wasal Khan, the guy was Wasal Khan and his daughter and his family, but 36 children, women and men together. This is the first documented rescue operation in India or anywhere in the world carried out by civilian effort. We were able to free them, but let me tell you, that was the moment of truth for me. When these children were coming back from High Court of Delhi near India Gate, were jumping on the streets like you forcefully put some frogs inside a bucket and suddenly you open the cover and the frogs jump. So they were jumping on the streets in joy. I have read about freedom, I have read about liberty and liberation, I knew about mukti and moksha and all kind of things. But when these children were jumping in joy, when I saw the tears rolling down from the eyes, the tears of joy, from the eyes of those mothers who could never believe that their children would ever be freed. I tell you, dear sisters and brothers, I could feel the glimpse of God in them. I don't know who else has witnessed the God and realized the God, But that day I could feel the God inside me, and I could feel the God inside those children and those women who were crying in joy. Nothing is more divine, nothing is more sacred, nothing is more valuable than the smile of freedom on the face of a child. And people started asking me, what was that? Why did you think of that? I was trying to explain myself, and then I had come out with one answer, that the reason is not political. It was not my career orientation or any other commercial reason. The spark could be just one, and that is compassion. Compassion. Today, my topic is talking about the compassion in education and teaching. I'll come back to compassion in a minute, but let me tell you that this Punjab and India as whole is the land of great gurus, rishis, oliyas, sages. When I was giving my Nobel acceptance speech, in my opening remark, I said that this Nobel Prize is tribute to the great land of India. You are not respecting Kailash Satyarthi, you are respecting millions of children on the earth who need you. But you are respecting Ram, you are respecting Krishna, you are respecting Guru Nanak Dev. So when I came back, after the ceremony, I saw dozens of Sikh gentlemen, Sardar ji with their pagdi, sab pagdi वगड़ी पहन के और ढोलक लाके और बहुत ज़्यादा भंगड़ा कर रहे थे बाहर. And the Norwegian committee people were thinking that what is happening there? The Sikh gentlemen were dancing, all their families, children, men and women gathered outside the hotel where I was staying, and they were dancing. So this is the land of gurus, teachers. The first mantra of Rig Veda says, Agni Mide Purohitam Yajjasu Deva Mrityujam Hotaram Ratna Dhatumam. It means the teachers of the world, the people who believe in the betterment of humanity, come together, assemble together, and let us ignite the fire of knowledge together. Togetherness is very important here. Yaj means let us sit together and ignite the fire of knowledge that can be converted into wealth and prosperity for all. So knowledge for all is converted into the prosperity for all. Today we live in a world which is the world of various disparities, discriminations, inequalities. And the growing inequality in the world is basically the growing economic violence in the world. Inequality is economic violence. And unfortunately, it's growing. When I'm standing here, let me share you with some very hard fact. We all know that education is liberation. Education is a fundamental human right which is the cornerstone of all the human rights. Education is light, not only to ignite our own life, but the lives of the world. Education is key to equality, justice, gender equity and gender justice, peace, sustainability, and so on. But today, 260 million children have to be in school and they are not. Almost 60 million children have never seen the school gate, and another 200 million children were forced to leave because either their governments or families could not provide them quality education. We have made a promise time and again in Jomtien, in Dakar, and then in Sustainable Development Goals to ensure education for all. Not only education, but quality, equitable and inclusive education, along with opportunities for lifelong learning. That is our commitment in Sustainable Development Goals. But 260 million children are not in schools, in primary and secondary age group. 150 million children must be in schools, but they are working as child laborers, child slaves, child prostitutes. Many of them are producing the cost of their childhood education and freedom. The products which you and I use, they are made by children. In the world, I'm not talking about one country. 428 million children are suffering multi-dimensional poverty in the world. Means no health care, no good education, no quality life, facing malnutrition, stunting, and all kind of things. Hunger, 428 million. They are below the age of 10. But when we count the number of children who are facing multidimensional poverty, you know that 1.3 billion people in the world are poor, and half of them are children below the age of 18. World needs 8 million teachers now. And what does it cost? Just to understand, $22 billion are good enough to ensure education for all children in primary classes. And if we have to ascertain education, give good quality education in secondary classes also, we need $40 billion annual. 40 billion. And what is this $22 billion? Is 1/5 of what Americans spend in tobacco. This is 1/6 which Europeans spend annually, cosmetics. And this is 4.5 days of global military expenditure. If the world decides that we have to educate our children, we have to hire good quality teachers, inspired, motivated, well-paid teachers, with protected future, then what is needed? 4.5 days of global military expenditure. This is the world we have created for our children, and we are just walking with that comfortably. In my own office, in my own organization, sometimes the young people who are well off, belonging to very good families, rich families, well educated, went to study in Harvard and Oxford and came back to work with me, tell me that, sir, I have an appointment with whom? With a psychologist, with a consultant, counselor. Why? Then these young girls and boys answer, sir, sometimes we feel depression, acute depression, anxiety. We are burned out. We are feeling some kind of hopelessness in our life. So we are going to consult a doctor. And I smile. This is the result of all that education, the higher education and the great good quality life. Globally speaking, we also see that how the soul of globalization is shrinking. what has happened in Brexit, what we have in America and many other parts of Latin America. I have been working across 140 countries, 20 years or so, and I see that how this loneliness, this deprivation mentally, apart from inequalities and discriminations, the psychological issues, social issues of divisiveness are increasing. And one reason is that we have lost the path of globalization, of compassion. We have to ignite the compassion from inside. That is the best gift of God, best gift of divinity. And what is compassion? When you start feeling the suffering of others as your own suffering, with a desire and drive to change that suffering, to eradicate that suffering of others, the pain of others, as your own pain, then the compassion begins. I'm not talking about sympathy. That is very superficial, outer. I'm not even talking about empathy, which is better, deeper than sympathy. I am talking about compassion, which has a strong drive to solve the pain and suffering of others, feeling as it is your own suffering. ये suffering हमें बताता है. So dear friends, as my time is almost over, the teachers can play the most important role in igniting that compassion. They can even learn compassion from children. We have been teaching children so many things: score good marks, be a good student, so that you can earn more money. Your parents could be proud and happy if you earn more money and good career. It is good. You can keep on teaching this. But this is the time to teach and ignite, strengthen, motivate these children with compassion so they can also be the problem solver. They can feel love to society, to planet, to people, to everyone, to animals, and that is possible. So teachers can play the most important role in globalization of compassion. The West has globalized economy, markets, production, technology. India is the land which should take the lead in globalizing compassion in the world, and that you and you and you can do.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Chatayarthi, for inspiring all our teachers here. Thank you so much. Okay, that was really inspiring. Now we are about to meet a scientist, but she is also an expert on education. She has been in a big development project to reform the Indian educational system to be able to more meet the challenges of tomorrow. So give a warm hand to Lena Vadia. Welcome up on stage.
Thank you, Annika. This is such an incredibly inspiring platform to speak at, and I'm so I can't get over the fact that I'm so fortunate to be standing here before you. I've had the good fortune to spend the last 2 years working on the National Education Policy of India. Professor Harosh mentioned Manjul Bhargav. Manjul Bhargav is the leader of the drafting committee of the National Education Policy. The committee is chaired by Dr. Kasturi Rangan. We are all Indians, we know this. The policy has been out in the public since the 30th of May. and it was open for public comments till August 15th. So what I will do today, so many of you may have seen, what I will do today is that I will take you through some of the provisions of the policy for teachers, so that teachers can do what Mr. Satyarthi said, which is give quality education to every child and to teach them compassion, among many other things. So let me begin. That's the title, Transforming a System, and we are hoping that the education policy will transform the system. I'll begin by just quickly talking about some of the main points of the policy. My focus will be the points in red, which is the central role of teachers and the creation of school complexes, because I understand that many of you are elementary school teachers. But what I want to say is that the policy has very special focus on very young children who are not yet part of the government school system. So early childhood care and education will become a formal part of government school system, and the aim of the policy is to strengthen government schools so that every child, irrespective of disabilities and irrespective of all kinds of constraints at home, is able to come to school and get an education for till they are in grade 12, which is till they are 18 years of age. So that we have suggested that the policy be extended from 3 to 18 years. It's a cost for the government, but like Mr. Satyarthi said, not anything comparable to what we spend on other things. And so, we may run out of time, I will quickly move on. So we expect teachers to take the lead in transforming education in the country, but we can't do that if we don't give them the environment they need to be able to function. So some of the things we have said is that the teacher preparation has to improve a lot, and their recruitment policies and working conditions have to improve a lot. Then, they should have very high quality, continuous professional development, and that they should have better career pathways within their profession. So let's look at a few of them. So the big change in teacher education is that the teacher education is going to move into universities, into the Department of Education in universities, so that teachers can study in a multidisciplinary environment, okay? So that's the big change. I won't go into all the details. So the basic degree will become a 4-year B.Ed after grade 12. And of course, the curriculum and pedagogy will change. We are including the ages 3 to 8 in a new grouping called foundational education. And that stage will actually be taught as a stage-specific B.Ed degree in universities. And that's true about all the other things also, all the other stages also. With regard to recruitment of teachers, we have suggested that the recruitment be done locally. This is very, very important. So many of our kids don't have foundational numeracy when they are lower grades. They don't attain foundational literacy and numeracy, and then they get left behind. So that is part of the reason for that is the lack of connect with their teachers, the lack of a language that they share with teachers. In India, every few kilometers you move away, the dialect changes, the speaking style changes. So children need to relate to their teachers. So we have suggested all this, but of course, education is a state subject, so we will see whether the state governments accept all the suggestions that we've made. And then for, working conditions, one of the most important recommendations we've made is that there should be pay parity for teachers across all grades. This is very important because very few teachers don't really want to go to teach in primary grades because it pays less than teaching in secondary grades. Our young children are very precious, and teachers who teach them should not get lower pay than that. So that's one of our big recommendations that we've made. And of course, a lot of teachers are working as contract faculty for years and years. because they have not been able to clear the teacher eligibility test or something like that, and that too has to change. So we have said that there should be the teacher eligibility test should be revised, and that there should be other criteria for hiring teachers, and that the practice of hiring para-teachers should be phased out. If a teacher has taught for several years and is evaluated and is doing a good job, then they must be on par with government teachers, because para-teachers get only about a third of the salary that government teachers do. And the school complex is a very important concept. What we are trying to do is that we say we don't have the money to equip 1.5 million schools, but if you cluster them into 25, 30 schools and create a school complex, that will create a community of about 80 to 100 teachers. And these teachers can then become a group who self-drive their continuous professional development, support each other, get additional resources. So the school complex is a concept that we are commission in 1964-66, but we are bringing it back. So we hope that it will get adopted. And yeah, I've skipped one thing. So as we said that school teachers will also help manage administration better, because they will allow for governments to resource a school complex. So you can share playgrounds, you can share computer labs, you can share other science laboratories and so on. So hopefully the governments will spend more easily on this. If you divide 1.5 million by 30, it's only about 50,000 school complexes that have to be resourced. And of course, then continuous professional development of teachers must be self-directed. It should be possible for teachers to do field research as part of their own development, and that will be possible because the head of the school complex will be the principal of the secondary school within that complex. Also, in terms of career development, teachers should have many avenues. They should be able to enter administration. If they have an interest in that, they should be able to train and become teacher educators, the people who train teachers, if they would like. And these things, the details of all this will have to be worked out in collaboration with state governments. So some of you will have to take the lead in insisting that some of these good policy initiatives are made available to you. So the last thing I want to say is that those are the main recommendations that we've made with regard to the teachers. There are many more in the document, but we are hoping that once the teachers are given the right environment to work, they will give back by being the torchbearers of change and helping our children get quality education. Each and every child in this country must get free education until the age of 18. Each and every child who cannot afford it, and it's up to us to make this happen. Thank you very much. So I just wanted to mention one thing, because Mr. Satyarthi spoke before me. He talked about compassion. So I was looking at the list of, the World Economic Forum has put out a list of competencies and personality traits that should be developed in children. So the competencies are, neither of those include compassion. So I think it's time that we told the World Economic Forum to include compassion. They have things like, curiosity, initiative, persistence, and grit, but they don't have compassion. So we should do that. Yeah. Thank you.
Check.
Okay, this one is working. Thank you so much, Lena. And please sit in the panel now, because now we are asking more people to join us here up on stage. It's the Nobel laureate Serge Haroche, it's Julien Sirat, and as representatives for teachers, it's Arvind and Isha Anand. Please come up on stage. Welcome. So, please have a seat. Welcome. So, the theme for this panel will be education for the future of teaching and learning. And here today, we have really good speakers that have joined us before, but new on stage are you, Isha, and you, Arvind. So welcome. Isha, I want to start up with you. You're a teacher, a language teacher, here in Chandigarh, yeah? You also involved in several school development projects. Our kids today, they will work in professions that we don't even know about. So what skills do we need to develop for our kids?
Curated by Government of India in collaboration with NABI and of course global media. I welcome you on this occasion. And of course, the theme of this event is teaching and learning. So this theme has been taken up sensibly. I must say it is the need of an hour. And the first question that has been raised is how to prepare teachers and students for the current scenario, the skills required. I believe we can divide the skills into three categories: the skills regarding literacy, the skills regarding the lifestyle, and also the skills related to their day-to-day knowledge. As we have seen that students nowadays, they are facing so much of competition. And being a teacher, it is a foremost duty to prepare them not only at the global level, but also help them to know their day-to-day challenges in life, to bring into life the experiential learning that we should, stress on. Because just teaching them from the books or just hurriedly completing the syllabus is not the aim of teaching. I believe the experiential learning, the practical learning is very much important. Also, apprising a student with the latest inventions, latest new avenues of knowledge, that is must required for teaching job in current scenario. I believe so.
Yeah, and you know that from experience. Exactly. Yeah, and Arvind, I would like to ask you, you're a professor in physics. Do we need new methods to teach for the future? You also teach, so please speak slowly into the mic and very close.
Yeah, see the methods have to evolve, and they have been evolving. But I think more than the methods, what I learned very properly from the comments made by Haroche, that student has to be first a teacher. The teacher has to be first a student. So he was telling us what he learned from Manjul Bhargava, and then he put it in a slide here. And I think that there is a hidden message that even somebody like him is willing to tell what he learned, and he's putting it back to the community. So that's one aspect that we need to focus on. The second aspect, I think, is that the context. On the one hand, the context is becoming global, However, the context in which education is being provided is extremely important. So I do not see that the classroom teaching is going to disappear and technologies are going to take over all that and so on, because students use teachers as their role models. And that aspect is extremely important because for that they have to see and interact with teachers. And another aspect is that it is much beyond the knowledge that is being shared. The teacher also has to kind of have to believe in that knowledge that is being communicated. To give you an example, there's a physicist who enters a class sitting on a pendulum in a large room where he sits on a pendulum and pendulum swings all the way. And when the pendulum crosses the center of the class, it is very fast. But by the end of the room, it stops because the teacher believes in the physics laws and teacher knows that he is not going to hit the wall. So that's the message he is giving to the students, that there is a certain precision in the knowledge that we have to first believe in, and then only we can practice it and so on and so forth. So these are some of the things I think as teachers we should keep in mind.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So Serge, I wanted to pick up on the things that you said about curiosity and like curiosity and questions. So how do we even more empower a curious mindset, curious scientific mindset with the students?
As I said, I think that curiosity is something which is in all children. They always ask questions. They always want to know the world, what is the world around us. And this is basically the same question that physicists or scientists in general are asking to themselves. So there is a very precious time at the beginning of in elementary school where you have to get in phase with this curiosity and show them that this curiosity can be nurtured in a way which is not threatening. They should not take mathematics or physics as different, which is only for others. You have to give them simple examples. Maybe illustrating these examples by telling them stories about famous scientists. And I think this is something which will give them the will or the need to learn more about science. But of course, for that to succeed, you need, as I said, really the background. You need students to have literacy, to be comfortable with counting, with making additions, with measuring things. And so there is something to do from the start. And I don't want also to say that it's just fun. Sometimes people say, okay, children have to play. It's not playing, it's just trying to instill in the mind of the student the need for knowledge. And I think it's a fantastic challenge for good teachers. And for that reason, I think it's very important what we just saw in the previous talk, that there is a strong incentive to improve the training of teachers in India is, I think, something very important. Because without that, all what we say will be useless.
Yes, okay, thank you. So I totally agree with that. And so Lena, you try to anticipate the future needs to make adjustments to the educational system. What needs to change very shortly? What is the most important thing to change for the future?
I think we have to have the will to change. Collectively, we have not shown the will to change. You said shortly, that's all that's...
The short answer is we have really good teachers. And I know because I visited schools here in Chandigarh yesterday and before yesterday, and I saw some amazing teachers. So I think they are wonderful. So I agree. So Julene, I'm going to ask you, you are in the committee that selects Nobel Laureates. What's your best advice to teachers here to encourage the students? Because we want to make them think they can all become not maybe Nobel laureates, but really successful.
So some of the best advice that I could offer, some of the best advice that I could offer to teachers is to really see each individual student as someone that really has the potential to make a huge difference in the world. So seeing students is a big thing. The other is to encourage curiosity in the students. And the other would be encourage them to even challenge the dogmas. Because oftentimes a Nobel Prize is awarded for someone that really steps aside from the conventional wisdom and breaks a new ground. But in order for a person to be able to do that, they really have to feel secure and they need to feel secure in the ability to So fostering confidence in the students is really important.
Yeah, thank you. I want to ask Lena again, what was your best teacher like when you grew up?
I think I was very fortunate. I've had very many very good teachers, but our mathematics teacher in Hyderabad during my undergrad, she called us. We were very boisterous and skipped classes and so on. And then she called us one day, and I was in a women's college, and there were only 13 mathematics students. And she called us and made us stand around in a semicircle, and she explained to us how few Indians get an undergraduate education and how much fewer women, and that you cannot waste your life. You owe it to yourself and to society to become something and give back. And I think that's the most wonderful memory that I have. I remember her all the time. Yeah.
Yes, and thanks. So Isha, I wanted to ask you, was it some specific teacher that made you pick the teaching profession? What did that teacher do?
Exactly. I can say that teaching is in my genes because my mother was a teacher, and when I grew up looking at her and always discussing the school things at home, so it always fascinated me that this profession has something for me to do. Moreover, I am a person who cannot sit quiet, and being a teacher, you get that opportunity to interact with your students. And many teachers in your life motivate you, inspire you to join this profession, because we know that teaching is not only just a teaching nowadays. It has grown up into a profession that deals with the human minds, human psychology, and treating 40 different minds together at one time is a big challenge. So I took up this profession not just as a profession, but as my passion. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And I wanted to ask you, Jolene, we are talking a lot about that science, knowledge is being questioned. Facts are being questioned. We talk about fake facts and stuff like that. What do you think teachers can do?
So I think it's really important that as teachers, we demand evidence. And, I'm a scientist, so we really think a lot about having facts and being able to present a hypothesis and then challenging that hypothesis with facts and data. And so having a high level of stringency and having a dialogue where you can evaluate facts is really, I think, very important. So if you say something, you should be able to back it up with evidence. Facts matter.
Facts matter, thank you. And Serge, I wanted to ask you also the same question. How can we make more people really trust in science? Because this is important.
I think we have to teach the children the scientific method. The fact that science is based on observation or experiments where you observe phenomena, and then you build models, and these models allow you to predict new phenomena. And if these new phenomena do not occur, it means that the model is wrong, and you have to come back to a new model. So, in fact, you have to teach children that the truth in science is something which is evolutive, which is not just written from the beginning, but that this evolution has nothing to do with the doubt that conspiracy theory are putting in the mind of people. You have really to make sure that the students make the difference between a theory, a scientific theory, and just an opinion. And for that, you have to teach them a lot of things, not only science, you have also to teach them history, because history is full of facts, of things which happened because people have believed in opinions which are proven to be pernicious, to be bad. So you have to teach the truth in a wide context, in the context of science, but also in the context of humanities. And this is very important. You cannot just build the trust in science by only giving scientific facts. You build it by opening the mind of students, of children, to all kinds of knowledge. Humanities and history is also very important.
Yes, thank you so much. And Arvind, I wanted to ask you, how do we get more kids interested in science? Is it something you want to tell the teachers?
See, very briefly, I would like to say that science is a very practical, hands-on knowledge. And particularly in Indian schools, it is being taught as a very bookish knowledge. So when you bring it out of the textbook and make it happen in the classroom, then students will get motivated towards taking up science as a career. Second point is that we have to start living in a scientific way. So adopting science as a way of life and applying scientific method to various aspects of our life will also connect our next generation with science. These are the two things I would say will go a long way.
Thank you. And Isha, I wanted to end actually with you. So what would you tell all these teachers? What do you think they will bring with them today?
Yes, from this platform, I guess I need to give a wonderful message to the teacher that just don't be teachers, be learners first. Until and unless we motivate ourselves to learn better for the coming generations, we cannot bring any change. So in order to bring change, be the change yourself you want to see. It means until and unless we are not in that mode of learning, we cannot imbibe that thing to our students. So a beautiful message for all, that teachers are always a learner. So we need to learn this thing every day, every moment. We need to focus on this thing, that teacher is always a learner. And same thing we need to imbibe in our students as well. So it's time to change our attitude nowadays, I guess, that yes, we are into this profession. We are here with a passion, the passion to bring the change, to take our country, our nation, this universe forward with the virtues like compassion, peace, and also developing the scientific temper. That is very, very important as we are in the transition stage from, the learning that is converted into artificial intelligence. So every day, day in, day out, we are in the world living with science, surviving with science. So yes, scientific temper is very important for every teacher. And also to inculcate the same in our students. Thank you.
So those were beautiful words to round up this discussion, because we are all teachers. And you are all teachers. And teaching profession is a really important profession. And I hope today, meeting Nobel laureates, top scientists, and teachers, that this has inspired you to learn more about the Nobel Prize. Stay tuned with us when the new Nobel Prizes are coming up in just a month. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming here. And I hope I'll see you again. Thank you.